Stranger in Moscow was written when I was in Moscow on the Dangerous tour. And it was just a strange, eerie, lonely time for me. Outside my hotel was just a sea of faces of fans chanting and screaming. But I was inside my room and I felt so all alone, like I was like the last person on the planet. And in the song I say, how does it feel when you're alone and you're cold inside? I say it's like a stranger in Moscow. And that's pretty much how I felt. And the people were lovely. They were some of the nicest people I've ever met. And the concert was very successful. But that day, especially that day, I just felt this different feeling, and the song Stranger in Moscow came to me. So that's how that was written.
Michael worked out a deal with Sega where Michael was going to do the music for Sonic the Hedgehog 3. Then he calls me and he says, Brad, get to work on doing the music for Sonic the Hedgehog 3. And he really wasn't up for doing a whole lot. Me and Matt Forger at Record One for a solid month did cues. And I delegated other people to help me, like Doug Grigsby and Daryl Ross and different people. But at the end of the day, we had about 41 cues, and they sounded really good. And so now we're in Moscow playing concerts there. And, you know, Michael's going through a lot, as you can imagine at that time, right, with his situation. And so he calls me at 10:30 in the morning to come to his hotel. I come there and he's really, really sad. And there's a piano there, an upright piano, and he goes, just start playing something. And so one of the cues, like the very first cue I did for Sonic, was the verse for Stranger in Moscow, only played in a very cartoon-like way. But it's the exact notes, the exact key, the exact voicings, everything, right? So when I came to his room at 10:30 in the morning, back then we used cassettes, and I had a cassette of the 41 cues, and I thought he wanted to hear how the work was going with Sega. And so he goes, no, I don't want to hear any of that. I go, okay. And he goes, he said, just start playing. And so I played a bunch of stuff, and then I played that cue, but I played it in a much different way. You know, I didn't play in a cartoonish way. I played it, just started playing. But it was the exact same chords, the exact same voicings, everything. It's in E flat, and it's E flat to D flat add 9 to F sharp to G to A flat. And that's the verse. And it does it 4 times, and the voicings change the third cycle. So at any rate, I played that, and he really liked it. And he said, take it somewhere, take it somewhere. So when I got done with the verse, I did a real simple, weird kind of modulation. When I was in Stevie's band, he always taught me that the least amount of notes that you have to move around to make the most psychological impact is how you want to do it, right?
Right.
It's like in a poem, fewer words are better if they're the right words, right? So I went to, it ends in A flat, which is a triad, which happens to be the major third and the major seventh of an E major 7 chord, which is a wonderful modulation. Then I went to the 4 chord, which is an A. So we had the chorus. And then I just dropped it a whole step, D major 7 to G, and he loved it.
Yeah.
And so now we had a verse and a chorus, right?
So
and
this was happening in Moscow, or this was later?
In Moscow.
Okay.
The song was written between 10:30 in the morning and 12 noon, right? That morning, and he was pretty depressed, right? He was real. He wasn't happy, right? And when we got the song done, he started getting very happy, right? The tour went on, the tour got done, and now I'm back up at the ranch, and we're working on stuff to get ready for the next album, for the History album. We started immediately working on Stranger in Moscow. You know, we're in a dance studio because he doesn't have a proper studio at Neverland.
Right.
And so there was an Akai 8-track, which is just a horrible digital recorder. Remember that?
Yeah.
You know, and so he beatboxed into it, right? And so I had a snippet of about 11 seconds of him beatboxing, right? And that's as far as we took it.
So the next thing that happened is the album is starting, and he sends me to New York, and we started at Sony, not at Hit Factory in Studio 3, I think. We're at Sony just working on Stranger in Moscow. So what I did is I did all the drums. I took that beatbox snippet, chopped it up in the emulator, made tiny short sounds out of it, sequenced it in the MPC, and did the drum track that way. All those drums are his beatboxing.
Right.
The thing that's so great about his beatboxing is that it's a way for him to come up with a drum idea that is completely synchronized to the way he would dance.
Right.
So it's the most transparent, intuitive idea coming from him. It's almost like the way he dances is coming out of his mouth, and then I can turn that into a drum track. So now we have a drum track that is made for Michael's brain. It's just terrific.
In the very last days of production on that, Michael brought in Toto, the guys from Toto, and they did some wonderful things on that, right? They laid down a beautiful bass line. There's a sax lick in the chorus. There's a guitar lick that was added to it. But basically, I did all the tracks. And that's basically the song, that's Stranger in Moscow. And he wrote beautiful lyrics to it. And basically, the melody, for the most part, is just the top notes of the chords I'm playing. And the verse was born from one of the very first cues I did for Sega, for Sonic the Hedgehog. And the song came together in that hour and a half that morning in Moscow.